إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الكلام كلام الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وبعد. Apologies, Ikhwan, for the brothers and the sisters who have been sitting and waiting for a period. Again, may Allah Azza wa Jal reward you, Ikhwan, for your patience. And we hope that your patient waiting at least has something from benefit in it, inshallah. In this session, we want to discuss, Ikhwan, the qissa or the story of the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Hud alayhi salam. As far as the affair of the prophets and the messengers is concerned, Ikhwan, there is a point and a note that needs to be made, and that is some of the historians discuss that which is related to the lineage of the prophets and the messengers. Haqiqatan, and in reality, in terms of the lineage of the prophets and the messengers, for example, we find Ibn Kathir will make mention of the lineage of the prophets and the messengers going all the way back to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, or going back to Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. Haqiqatan, Ikhwan, as far as the lineage of the prophets and the messengers is concerned, then it is, and there is nothing by way of that which is authentic, having an authentic chain of narration going back to those prophets and those messengers that have been mentioned. And much of what is taken in that regard has been taken from the books of the Israeliyat and the books of those who received the revelation prior to the revelation of the Quran. Even though, no doubt, those books and those scriptures were better in the time, for example, of Al-Imam Ibn Kathir and some of the historians that make mention of those chains of narration, they were still, Ikhwan, perverted and distorted and adulterated, and thus it is difficult to rely upon them. So even though we mention them, it should be known, Ikhwan, from the outset that those narrations, we're mentioning them because the historians mention them. And we're mentioning them because of the fact that there are some narrations that return back to some of the companions of the Messenger or some of the Tabi'een, individuals who were well acquainted with the scriptures, the previous scriptures, the likes of Wahab ibn Munabbih, the likes of Ka'ab al-Ahbar, individuals who were acquainted with the scriptures and were possibly people of knowledge from the previous religion and then became Muslim. And that indicates the fact that the affair of Christians becoming Muslims or Jews becoming Muslims, it occurred even at the time of the Messenger ﷺ. But what we do benefit from it is something of a benefit in terms of that which was purer than it is now, even though at that time it was already corrupt. So the scriptures that they were working with were better, but they were still corrupt, though our scholars and the historians still quote from them and mention those chains of narration. So those chains of narration, Ikhwan, they discuss them, but we wanted to just highlight the fact that there isn't, in terms of anything that may be truly relied upon, that we can return back to in that regard. Al-Imam Ibn Kathir, he mentions three separate chains or three separate versions of the lineage of Prophet Hud alayhi salatu wassalam. After mentioning that introduction, we highlight the fact that Al-Imam Ibn Kathir, he mentions three separate versions of his lineage going back to Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. No doubt, Hud, after the destruction of the people of Nuh, then ikhwan, any nation or any generation that exists after Nuh is referred back to or is given the lineage returning back to Nuh. And Allah Azza wa Jal even mentions that in the Quran, ذُرِّيَّةَ مَنْ حَمَلْنَا مَعَ نُوحٍ. When Allah addresses those who were present at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah mentions, as occurs in the beginnings of Surah Isra, ذُرِّيَّةَ مَنْ حَمَلْنَا مَعَ نُوحٍ. That, O ye dhurriya, O you children or offsprings of those who were carried with Nuh. O you offsprings of children who were carried with Nuh, on the ark. And they were, Allah Azza wa Jalla addresses the Arab of Quraysh and those who were present at the time of the Messenger ﷺ as the offsprings of those who were carried ma'a Nuh, those who were carried with Nuh, because of the fact that anyone before Nuh, anyone prior to Nuh, or rather anyone prior to the punishment that occurred and the punishment that took place with the people of Nuh, they were destroyed in completion. And the only people that existed thereon after were those who were Nuh and the believers who were with him. The majority of them being his offsprings and his sons and his relatives. But the origin is, ikhwan, as Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, that no one believed with him illa qaleel. No one believed alongside him other than a few. And some narrations mention there were 8 or 9 believers that were with Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. And thus the nations that exist now ultimately return back to Nuh in terms of lineage, though no doubt Nuh in terms of his lineage returns back to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. So we're ultimately the children of Adam, but in terms, ikhwan, of traceable lineage, then because of the flood and that which took place from the adhab of Allah Azza wa Jal, we are not able to trace back or to return the lineage of individuals except back to Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. And so you'll find the lineage and those scholars, historians who discuss the lineage of Hud alayhi salatu wasalam, then their lineage of Hud returns back to Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. And another point around the affair of the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, ذُرِّيَّةَ مَنْ حَمَلْنَا مَعَ نُوحٍ, O offsprings of those who were carried with Nuh, is the fact that Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, after Allah Azza wa Jal destroyed the people of Nuh, the individuals who existed after Nuh were of different backgrounds or were different peoples. There are some narrations, again, ikhwan, narrations that return back to the scriptures of those who received scriptures before the revelation of the Quran, that mention the lineages of people returning back to 3 of the sons of Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam: Ham, Sam, and Japheth. Ham, Sam, and Japheth. And there were some narrations that indicate that the Atrak and the Turks and people from that region returned back to one of the sons of Nuh. That Ham, we had the people of the African nations returning back to Ham, and Japheth, you had other people, the Romans and what have you, returning back to Japheth. And thus we have those 3 sons of Nuh, and that which is mentioned by the scholars who mentioned the biographies of the prophets and the messengers, that they in essence were the origins of the peoples that have now spread across the world. Those 3 sons of Nuh. In terms of the Arab, then it is said, ikhwan, and there's a lot that has been said concerning the origins of the Arab. Concerning the origins of the Arab, then there are a number of narrations concerning who was the first of those who spoke the Arabic language. From those narrations are narrations that mention that Nuh in actuality was from the first of those who spoke the Arabic language. There are some weak narrations that mention that Adam was the first to speak the Arabic language. But the majority of the historians mention that Hud alayhi salatu wassalam was the first of the Arab. That Hud was the first of the Arab. In terms of the lineage then of Nuh one of Hud alayhi salatu wasalam. And the first mention of any lineage of Hud that Ibn Kathir mentions is the following, and that he mentions that huwa Hud ibn Shalih ibn Arfakhdash ibn Sam ibn Nuh, that he was Hud, the son of Shalih ibn Arfakhdash ibn Sam ibn Nuh. The second lineage that he mentions is that it is said likewise that he is Hud, and that his name actually was Abir. Now, this second opinion is that Hud was one of his names, and that his name was actually Abir ibn Shalih ibn Arfakhdash ibn Sam ibn Nuh. And that, Ikhwana, those two narrations, or those two versions of his lineage, makes a relatively close, or there's a relative close proximity between Hud and Nuh. That we have between Hud and Nuh, three of the fathers, the forefathers of Hud, and then we have Nuh, which would indicate that there are somewhere in the region of 4 generations between Nuh and Hud. While the narration that Ibn Jarir al-Tabari rahimahullah ta'ala mentions concerning the lineage of Hud is that he says that he is Hud ibn Abdullah ibn Rabah al-Jarud ibn Ad ibn Iwas ibn Iram ibn Sam ibn Nuh. And that no doubt is and has an indication of a longer generational gap between Nuh and Hud. And so he says that he is Hud, the son of Abdullah, the son of Rabah Jarud, the son of Ad, the son of Iwas, the son of Iram, the son of Sam, the son of Nuh. That third narration, or that third version of his lineage, correlates in some ways between that which is mentioned concerning the Arab, or the origins of the Arab, the fact that Hud was the first of those who spoke the Arabic language, and that which is related to the name that was given to the people of Hud, Ad. And Ibn Kathir, and as we go on, we'll try, Ikhwan, and bring the relations between the lineage of Hud and the fact that the people of Hud are referred to as Ad. Ibn Kathir, he mentions وَكَانَ مِنْ قَبِيلَ يُقَالُ لَهُمْ عَاد ibn Iwas ibn Sam ibn Nuh. That he was from a people who were referred to as Ad, or a qabila, a tribe that was known as Ad, who was the son of Iwas ibn Sam ibn Nuh, which indicates then that Ad, the people themselves, were referred to and were named Ad after an individual, that was referred to as Ad, the son of Iwas. And thus the name was given to him, or given to the tribe, on the basis of the fact that Ad was a popular individual from among the tribe who was of that noble lineage returning back to Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, and thus the people became known as the people of Ad. Yani the people, meaning the tribe or the people whose offsprings return back to an individual referred to or known as Ad. The tribe whose forefather was Ad, an individual that was named in the lineage of that people. Ibn Kathir, he mentions وَكَانُوا عَرَبًا يَسْكُنُونَ الْأَحْقَافِ, and that they were Arab. And as we mentioned, the majority of the historians, Ikhwan, they mention that Ad, the people of Ad, were the first of the Arab. And if not the first, then among the first of the Arab that ever existed. And that they were individuals who lived in ahqaf, or lived in caves. And that is that they had dwellings that they made, either that they themselves lived in caves, or they had dwellings that they carved out of high mountains and out of rock face. The reality in terms of where they used to live, though, is that they, for the most part, lived in tents. What was well known concerning them, and we're going to see as we go through the statement of Hud to his people was that actually the majority of them lived in tents. And the dwellings that they carved out of rock face, the buildings that they carved, that the majority of those buildings were not actually lived in, but that they built their city in that manner to highlight the opulence of their people, to highlight them because of the fact that they were a people that were boastful concerning the manner in which Allah Azza wa Jal had created them, because Allah Azza wa Jal had given them power and strength, yani physical strength and power, and they had strength and power as a people. So they had strength and power in terms of offspring, strength and power in terms of physical strength and power. They were physically large people. And that, ikhwan, is and has a connection to another group of people that were referred to as being from among the first of the Arab, who were related to the people of Ad, and they are the Imliq or the Amaliq. The Amaliq were likewise a people that were considered from the first of the people who spoke the Arabic language, who were tall in stature, and they were large people. And so we're going to see as we work through and we look through the ayat concerning the statements of Hud to his people, that they were boastful in regards to how Allah Azza wa Jal had created them. The fact that they were large, the fact that they had great stature. Does that indicate then, and it's an issue, does it indicate then, ikhwan, the reality and the true nature of the existence of giants? Giants that we hear of in many fables and stories and story tales that we would come across and read as children. Do we say and do we believe as Muslims that giants existed? Naturally, it is difficult for us to affirm that the people of Ad were giant in stature, as in, that is, that they were far greater than the regular or the size of the regular human being. If one were to analyze though the houses that they made out of rock face, then no doubt if any of you have visited Mada'in Salih in Saudi Arabia, or you've been, for example, to Petra in Jordan, you will see, ikhwan, that those houses that were carved out of rock face, they were enormous. Were they, and was that indicative though of the fact that they were huge and that they were like mountains? That is again something that is difficult to affirm. One of the reasons it's difficult to affirm is because of the fact that, number one, though they would build those houses out of rock face, what is established from the story of Hud is that many of them were not dwelled in. Number one. Number two, the fact that when you analyze those houses, though they are huge and carved out of rock face, the doors of those houses were not as huge as you would believe those individuals were. If you were to look at the ratios of the houses that were carved out of rock face in relation to the size of the doors that were carved out of those rock faces, then, or the doors of those houses, then you would see, ikhwan, that there is something of a mismatch in terms of the relation between the size of the house and then the door of the houses that they built. So were those houses the houses that they actually dwelled in, or were they the houses that Hud dispraised them for carving? Because Hud, in his da'wah to them, dispraised them for carving the houses that they carved. And we're going to see as we go along, inshallah, how that occurred. In any case, what is established is that they lived, ikhwan, in the ahqaf, or they lived in caves that were present in the mountains in a region between Yemen and Umman. A region between Yemen, Hadramaut, and Umman. Al-Imam Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions وَكَانَتْ بِالْيَمَنْ بَيْنَ عُمَّانْ وَحَضْرَمَوْتِ, that they lived in Yemen between Umman and the region of Hadramaut. And it is a region that is known to this day as Ash-Shahr, in or on the borders of Yemen. He said, وَكَانُوا كَثِيرًا مَا يَسْكُنُونَ الْخِيَامِ ذَوَاتِ الْأَعْمِدَ الدُّخَامِ. He said that they were oft given to dwelling in tents that had huge pillars in the middle of those tents. So they would dwell within tents, and even though they were large, the tents therefore were relative to their size, so they had tents that had huge pillars that held those tents up. And he highlights the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal refers to them and makes mention of that. He mentions, كما قال تعالى ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد. Have you not seen what your Lord has done with Ad? إرم ذات العماد. إرم ذات العماد. And here, ikhwan, this statement has in it an indication of the fact that from the names of the people of Ad were that they were referred to as Iram, the people of Iram. And so Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِعَاد إِرَمَ ذَاتِ الْعِمَادِ. Yani, have you not seen what your Lord did to the people of Ad? Yani, Iram ذَاتِ الْعِمَادِ, the people of Iram, those who had houses or dwellings that had large pillars that held those houses up. And so either we have, and that manifests in a number of ways. Number one, that they built those houses, or the houses that were carved out of rock face, that they had from the structural distinguishing signs was that they built their city with large pillars. Secondly, that they had tents that had large pillars. And so Allah Azza wa Jal makes mention of that affair. The fact that they were referred to as Iram likewise, and Allah Azza wa Jal refers to them as Iram, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi'ad Iram. Did you not see what your Lord has done to Ad, the people of Iram, Dhatil Imad, the people of Iram who had dwellings that had large pillars? That indicates the nature, or that which is related to the isnad or the lineage that was mentioned by Al-Imam Ibn Jarir At-Tabari. And I'll remind you of that isnad he mentioned, or that lineage. He mentions that he is Hud, the son of Abdullah, the son of Rabah, the son of Jarud ibn Ad, ibn Iwas ibn Iram. So he mentions that he was Hud, the son of Abdullah, the son of Rabah, the son of Ad, indicating, number one, that Ad was the name of an individual who from his forefathers was Iram. And that, ikhwan, in those earlier times, people were named in that way, that they were named on the basis of popular individuals from among their people. And so many of the tribes, for example, the Amaliq, mathalan, were referred to as the Amaliq, who were likewise large, and they were tall individuals, that they were referred to as the Amaliq because of the fact that from there, or in their lineage, there was an individual that became popular known as Imliq. And they were referred to as the Amaliq because of someone that was present in the lineage of that people that became, or the people became popular, and that they were attributed to. So the lineage that was mentioned by Ibn Jarir At-Tabari, Hud ibn Abdullah ibn Rabah ibn Ad ibn Iwas ibn Iram, indicates that they were Ad and were from the offsprings of Iram. And so Allah Azza wa Jal refers to them as Iram. Now, and so he mentioned that they therefore were a people that had that lineage, or that were given that name. There were some, Ibn Kathir mentions, that claim that the people of Iram, or that Iram itself was a place, and that it was a city that moved. That it was a place and a city that moved. And that is to say, that if, for example, you had Reading here, that Reading was distinguished as Reading not only because of where we are, but because of the fact that the people of Reading dwelled and were travelers that moved together. And so Reading was given the name Reading because of the fact that wherever they dwelled, wherever the people of Reading moved to, then that region was referred to as Reading because of the fact that the people had moved to that region. And so from the historians were those who held that Iram in actuality was, if you like, a moving city or a city of travelers that not only dwelled in a particular region, was not referred to as Iram because of that region, but they were referred to as Iram because of the fact that they were the people whose offsprings were Ad and Iram. And thus they were a moving people. Wherever they relocated, then that region, because of the fact that the people of Ad and Iram lived in it, was likewise referred to as Iram. And that position, Ibn Kathir though holds that is a weak position, but it does have in it an indication though. If there is any truth to that statement, then it would have in it an indication of why you will find, for example, in Sham, a similar situation to that which you will find in the Mada'in Salih, or the region where Salih used to live, or the region where the people of Hud used to dwell. That you'll find these houses that were carved out of rock face, that they existed in more than one, and continue to this day. They can be seen, Ikhwan, and if you Google, you can see those images. If you Google, for example, the Mada'in Salih, you can still see the images of the houses that were carved out of rock face. If you Google Petra, you can still see the images of the houses that were carved out of rock face. And relatively recently, Ikhwan, in 1991, the remnants of the people of Iram were discovered. And I remember, Ikhwan, it was the year that I embraced Islam, and I remember, Ikhwan, seeing that on the news, that they had made a discovery, but it was quickly covered up. It was mentioned once, Ikhwan, in the media, once in the news, and it was never mentioned again. That they had discovered that there was an archaeologist that was in the region of the Rub' al-Khali, and that the people of that region used to speak about a city that used to dwell in this now desert-like place. And they used to speak of the stories of the people of old who spoke of a city that once existed in this region that was destroyed. And so this archaeologist who had connections with NASA, utilized some equipment by way of which they were able to send sound waves into the region that those Bedouin Arabs spoke of. And those sound waves, when they would return, by way of the sound waves, they would sense, or they were able to see that, or they were able to test the density of that which was beneath the earth that was being spoken of. And they tested and discovered that beneath the earth, truly beneath the earth, there was that something of space, that it wasn't solid earth as was the rest of the regions. And prior to them excavating the region, one of the Bedouin Arabs in the region, a shepherd, while he was moving with his sheep and with his cattle, that he put his staff down on the ground. And when he placed his staff down, his staff went into the ground, and it went through the soil. And so he realized when he moved his staff that actually there was quite a significant hole there. And so he began to dig in that region, and he uncovered the region, or he uncovered a large hole. At the same time, that individual, that archaeologist, who was a non-Muslim, had or was given the permission to excavate in the region. That discovery, the discovery of that Bedouin, was he informed the authorities concerning what he had discovered. They excavated the region, and lo and behold, they discovered, Ikhwan, a city beneath that region, just as those who are the elders of that region used to speak. And this is, ikhwan, not some fable. This is something that was relatively recent, as we mentioned, 1991, and you can again research the issue on the internet. So they discovered the city that they had traced back, and they mentioned, the BBC had mentioned that the only mention of this discovered city was in the Quran. The only mention of this discovered city was in the Quran. And so the city of Iram, just as the cities of Petra, of the Madain Salih, the city of Iram likewise, all of them, ikhwan, to this very day exist, and there are remnants of those cities that Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in the Quran. Those cities, ikhwan, the people of which Allah mentions in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَحَادِيث, a people who we have now made ahadith, nothing but stories that the people mention. As far as them themselves as a people, then they are no longer existent. And that no doubt is on the basis of their kufr, and on the basis of their inad, and of their rejection of the prophets and the messengers that were sent to them. And so Allah Azza wa Jal sent upon them various forms of adab. As far as the story of Hud alayhi salatu wasalam, then as we mentioned, ikhwan, Hud was from the first, if not the first, of the Arab. Concerning the affair of the Arab and the origins of the Arab, we should know, ikhwan, that the Arab, if one were to trace the lineage of the Arab back, they return back to two categories of Arab. We have those who are known as the Arabul Ariba. The Arab al-Ariba. The Arab al-Ariba are, if you like, the original Arab. The original Arab. And they were a number of peoples, varying peoples and tribes. As we mentioned, from them, we had the tribe of the Amaliq, who are referred to as being from the original Arab, the Arab al-Ariba. From them, we have the tribe of Thamud, who is referred to as being from among the original Arab, as the tribes of Hud were referred to as being from among the original Arab. Likewise, Jasim is from the tribes of the earliest of the tribes of the Arab. Qahtan, from the earliest of the tribes of the Arab. And ikhwan, we have the tribe of Abil and others, ikhwan, from among the earliest of those people who were referred to as the original Arab. And that is, they are the Arab who spoke the Lugha al-Arabiya prior to the coming of Ismail to the region. Ismail alayhi salatu wassalam, when he and his mother Hajar moved to the region on the basis of what Allah Azza wa Jal had decreed, that Allah Azza wa Jal decreed that Ismail and his mother alayhim salam, that they moved to that region and that they established themselves in that region. When Allah Azza wa Jal caused the well of Zamzam to burst forward, and they dwelled alone without having any inhabitants around them, the people, ikhwan, from the tribes of Yemen, after a calamity had taken place in Yemen, the people from the region of Yemen were moving and traveling, looking for a region to relocate. From the methods and the manners in which they would utilize to ascertain whether a region had water was that they would follow the movement of birds. And so they would follow the movement of the birds, and they saw when they came to the region of Mecca that even though it was a desert and even though it was a desolate place, they saw that birds were present around the region and the valley of Mecca. When they actually came to the valley, they saw and they discovered Ismail and his mother and the well of Zamzam, after Allah Azza wa Jal blessed her with the well of Zamzam. On the basis of their presence, the Arab, and they were the majority of them were from the tribe of Jurhum. They asked and sought the permission of the mother of Ismail, to live and to dwell in that region because of the fact that there was the presence of water there. She permitted them to stay. Ismail, when he grew, he married a woman from the tribe of Jurhum. He married a woman from the tribe of Jurhum. And thus, on the basis of Ismail marrying a woman from the tribe of Jurhum, then we had Ismail and his offsprings now becoming a second type of Arab. The tribe of Jurhum were known as the Arabul Ariba, were from the Arabul Ariba, or the original Arab. When Ismail married into the tribe of Jurhum, and Ismail no doubt being from the offsprings of the Messenger of Allah and the Prophet of Allah, Ibrahim, then his father being from Iraq. Ibrahim was not Arabi. Ibrahim was from Iraq, from a Persian people. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, his son Ismail, who no doubt in terms of background took and had the background of his father, the lineage or the blood of his father. And so he was Iraqi in essence, in terms of his blood, and his mother was from the region of Egypt. But as far as him marrying into the tribe of Jurhum, then he, on the basis of that marriage, their offsprings became known as the Arab al-Musta'riba. The Arab al-Musta'riba. Yani the Arab that became Arab, or whose offsprings became Arab on the basis of Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, who was of noble lineage, no doubt, of him marrying into the tribe of Jurhum. And so, that which is mentioned, and that which Ibn Kathir mentioned, is that Allah Azza wa Jal blessed him to speak al-lugha al-Arabiyya al-Fasiha, to speak pure Arabic language, eloquent Arabic language. And no doubt, and that is on the basis of him living among and marrying into the tribe of Jurhum, who were a tribe of Arab al-Ariba, pure Arabic or pure Arab blood. Thus we have at the back of that the Arab al-Musta'riba, and those are the Arab that are known as, or that return back to Ismail in terms of their lineage, and that is where Ikhwan, the tribes of Quraysh and other than them from among the noble Arab tribes emanated. Thus we find, Ikhwan, that the tribe then of the Arab were a number of tribes, but from them we had the people of Hud alayhi salatu wassalam. The people of Hud, Ikhwan, as we mentioned, who were known as Ad, are referred to, Ikhwan, in the Quran as Adan al-Ula. That Ad, the people of Ad, are of two types. We had Adan al-Ula, the first people of Ad. And then we have Ad al-Thaniya. Ad al-Thaniya are the second tribe of the people of Ad, who were Thamud. The people of Thamud were from the same lineage of the people of Ad, and so they are referred to as Ad al-Thaniya. So Allah Azza wa Jal makes mention of Adan al-Ula, yani the first Ad, and that is the Ad that Hud was from. Adan al-Thaniya, we're going to go on to mention, are the people of Salih alayhi salatu wassalam, and they are referred to as the second Ad. Referred to as the second Ad because of the fact that the first Ad were destroyed, other than the people of Hud and those who believed alongside Hud. And so they were referred to as Ad al-Thaniya. Concerning that then, Ibn Kathir, he mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, that Adan al-Ula were the first of the people to worship idols after the destruction of Nuh, of the people of Nuh, by way of the flood. They were the first of the people to turn to shirk. Some of the narrations mention some of the names of those idols. That some of those narrations mention that the idols that they worship, the main idols that they worship, were Samad, Samud, and Haba. The names of those idols were Samad, Samud, and Haba. Those were the names of the main idols that they used to worship. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they turned to worship those idols, Allah Azza wa Jal sent their brother Hud in order to give them da'wah and to inform them, Ikhwan, of the misguidance of worshipping the idols. Allah Azza wa Jal makes mention of their story in a number of places in the Quran. And so we mentioned, Ikhwan, some of those ayat and some of the verses that discuss the affair of Ad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, as occurs, Ikhwan, in Surah Al-A'raf, or the first of the verses that Imam Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions, is in Surah Al-A'raf, verse 65 to 73. That he mentions, كما قال تعالى بعد ذكر قوم نوح وما كان من أمرهم في سورة الأعراف. He mentions وإلى عاد أخاهم هودا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. That Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that to Ad we sent their brother Hud. To the people of Ad we sent their brother Hud, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that he said to them, يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. O my people, worship Allah, indeed you have no deity worthy of worship except Him. أفلا تتقون. Will you not then fear Him? Will you not then fear Him? And we see, Ikhwan, if you were to read the stories of the prophets and the messengers in Surah Al-A'raf, you'll find, Ikhwan, that all of them had the same introductory statement, though that was not necessarily the first statement that they said to their people, because they dwelled among them and they were raised among them. But in terms of their da'wah, Allah Azza wa Jal highlights a point, Ikhwan, throughout the story of those prophets and those messengers. وَإِلَىٰ عَادٍ, that Allah Azza wa Jal mentions to the people of Ad, أَخَاهُمْ هُودًا, we sent their brother Hud, saying, اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. Worship Allah, you have no deity worthy of worship except Him. And that indicates, Ikhwan, the fact that all of them, they began their da'wah with this affair, Ikhwan, of calling to the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal, to Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. And as we've said time and time again, Ikhwan, the prophets and the messengers came with the affair of Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. And you'll see in their da'wah that they used Tawheed al-Rububiyyah to call the people to Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. That Tawheed al-Rububiyyah was not the origin of their call. They utilized Uluhiyyah to call the people. They utilized Rububiyyah to call the people to Uluhiyyah. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, قال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه, that indeed those who are the gathering of individuals who disbelieved from his people, they said, إنا لنراك في سفاهة, that verily we see you as being upon foolishness. That indeed we see you as being an individual that is upon foolishness. Safaha. Yani this call of yours, this da'wah of yours is one that is foolish. We are a people who are established upon this affair of ibadah and this manner of worship for many years. And so what is this call of yours? Inna lanaraka fi safahatin, that indeed they said that we see you as being upon safaha, wa inna lanadhunnuka min al-kadhibin, and we believe that you are from the liars. Yani yarhamukallah, you're lying about your claim of prophethood. You're lying about your claim that you fear for us the punishment of a great day. You're lying that you've been sent from Allah Azza wa Jal. Yani all of these claims that you're making, we see you as being from among the liars. And that, Ikhwan, again, was from the statements of the deniers of the prophets and the messengers historically. That you're kadhab, that it's a lie, it's a fallacy, the statement of yours. And to this very day, Ikhwan, we find individuals from among the Dahriyin, those individuals who say that there is nothing, there's no God, there is nothing by way of any hereafter, rather we live and we die and that is it. Allah Azza wa Jal makes mention of them in the revelation of the Quran, and they existed, Ikhwan, throughout time. It is not a new phenomenon. That the statement of we live and we die, there's no such thing as God, that Ikhwan, is something that has existed. Though in our era, the affair of the rejection of God, though, and as far as the affair of worshipping Allah alone, then that is historical. As far as the rejection of God, then that is a relatively new phenomenon. That the people generally always believed in a God, always believed in the existence of Allah Azza wa Jal. But as far as this new belief in the absence of a creator, then that is in terms of historically a relatively new phenomenon. In any case, ikhwan, the prophets and the messengers, they denied the da'wah of their prophets, and here, ikhwan, the story of Hud is no different. Allah Azza wa Jalla informs us, as Ibn Kathir continues, قال يا قوم ليس بي سفاهة ولكني رسول من رب العالمين. He said that indeed, O my people, there is no fool, I don't have any foolishness with me. I'm not upon foolishness. But I am a Rasul من رب العالمين. أبلغكم رسالات ربي. I am doing nothing but conveying to you the statement of, or the message of my Lord. وأنا لكم ناصح أمين. And I am nothing but a nasih amin. I am nothing but a trustworthy advisor. Yani, you can trust the statement that I'm making. Yani, my statement is based upon haqq, not kadhib. That which I convey to you is from Allah, and I'm not lying to you concerning that, and I am trustworthy in the advice that I give to you. أُبَلِّغُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي وَأَنَا لَكُمْ نَاصِحٌ أَمِينٌ. I convey to you the message of my Lord, and I am nothing but a nasih and ameen, an advisor and trustworthy. And that, ikhwan, subhanallah, is the call of every da'i ila Allah Azza wa Jal in every time. That my statement, لا أسألكم عليه أجر, I don't seek any reward from you for what I'm saying to you. I'm doing nothing but being a nasih and ameen. I'm trying my best to be as trustworthy and upright as I possibly can, and I advise you. That, ikhwan, is the banner that every da'i should stand beneath. I am nothing but nothing but one that advises you. If we're giving da'wah to the non-Muslim, if we're giving da'wah to the Muslim that is either deviant or deviated away from the path of the Sunnah, or is upon fisq and upon sin and abandonment of righteous deed, then, ikhwan, our statement to them is and revolves around this statement of the prophets and the messengers. وَأَنَا لَكُمْ نَاصِحٌ أَمِينٌ. I am only advising you, and I am trustworthy in my advice. Thus, the da'wah of those prophets and those messengers revolved around that strapline of theirs, ikhwan, that they were nasih, advisors, and trustworthy. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, أَوَأَعْجِبْتُمْ أَنْ جَاءَكُمْ ذِكْرٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَلَى رَجُلٍ مِّنْكُمْ لِيُنذِرَكُمْ. That are you amazed that advice, or that are you amazed that Allah Azza wa Jal should send you a reminder with a man from among yourselves, which was always the case, as we read, ikhwan, and we came across in the story of Nuh, that they rejected the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal should send a man. Why would Allah send a man as a prophet? And so here we find a similar affair. Does it amaze you that Allah Azza wa Jal should send a man? And what is the issue? That Allah Azza wa Jal should send a man to remind you and to give you this reminder and to warn you. And so he mentioned, وَاذْكُرُوا إِذْ جَعْلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ مِنْ بَعْدِ قَوْمِ نُوحٍ. And remember, he mentions, when Allah Azza wa Jal made you khulafa, made you vicegerents after the people of Noah. You were the one that took over the dwelling of planet Earth after the people of Noah. وَزَادَكُمْ فِي الْخَلْقِ بَسْطًا. And Allah mentioned, and Allah Azza wa Jal gave you an increase in terms of your size and your stature. And Allah Azza wa Jal blessed them in size. And that was the da'wah, or what Hud reminded his people of. And here we have, ikhwan, another benefit as it relates to the da'wah of the da'i. And we saw it in the da'wah of Nuh, and we see it here in the da'wah of Hud. That is, from the benefits of giving da'wah, or from the methods of giving da'wah and returning the people back to their Lord, and returning the people back to Allah Azza wa Jal, is reminding them of the an'am, and reminding them of the ni'am of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon them, and the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon them. Remember the fact that Allah has made you vicegerents after Nuh. Allah made you, or gave you dominance upon the earth. And Allah Azza wa Jal gave you great stature. And he mentions various other aspects, how Allah Azza wa Jal has given you quwwah. And he reminded them in other places in the Quran that Allah will zadakum quwwatan ala quwwatikum, that Allah will increase you with power upon the power that you already have, strength upon the strength that you already have. And the Mufassirun, they mention that this statement of Hud, that Allah Azza wa Jal will increase you strength upon your strength, was mentioned by Hud on the basis of the fact that they were individuals who were arrogant in terms of that which Allah had given them, that they returned the affair back to the strength that they had, the power that they had, the dominance that they had upon earth, the offsprings and the lineage that they had, the children that they had, the buildings that they had, and the strength that Allah had given them. And so they used to say that who is stronger than us? Who is more powerful than us? That you should threaten us of a punishment that will come to us. Who can overcome us? Who can overpower us? Do you not see how we make buildings from mountain? Have you not seen the strength that we have? The physical strength that we possess? The strength in offspring and awlad and children? Do you not see that? Who will overpower us? And thus Hud in his da'wah, he reminded them, number one, of that which Allah has already given to them. And that is a reminder of them not being ungrateful for the ni'am of Allah Azza wa Jalla upon them. And secondly, that he promised them that if you carry out this affair of returning back to the Tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jalla, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, then not only will you have the power that you possess now, but Allah will increase you in power, will make you more powerful. Yani you have nothing to lose. And you only have gains to make. You will increase in power, you will increase in strength, you will increase in offspring, you will increase in the physical strength that Allah has given you. And so why then remain upon that which, though you believe yourself weak, why then remain in a position of weakness in relation to the strength that you could have if only you return to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone? And so here we find Ikhwan Hud alayhi salatu wasalam reminding them of the ni'am of Allah Azza wa Jalla upon them. And that is a benefit for the caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that from the methods of giving da'wah is reminding those who we call of the blessings of Allah upon them. Because oftentimes, Ikhwan, people may believe, well, I'm all right. You know, generally, I've got a relatively good life. We live in a decent place. You know, we don't live in those hard-to-do regions across the world who's suffering and have famines and whatnot. You know, generally, we have an abundance in food and drink, and we have places to live, and there is a relative abundance of wealth. We don't really have poor people, real poor people. We don't really have them here. So one may believe that, what reason do I have? Why should I now abandon this life of freeness and this free life that I'm living, and this life wherein I am benefiting from the affairs that I have earned and that my work has caused me to gain? There, Ikhwan, a person may say, well, I don't really need religion, to be honest with you. And so, Ikhwan, from the methodology of the prophets and the messengers in giving da'wah to Allah and in calling to Allah, was that they would remind their people of the blessings that they have, that those blessings are not blessings that have come to them by way of their own hands. Rather, those blessings are blessings that have come to them on the basis of the an'am of the Rabbil Alameen, that Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed them, given them ni'am. And thus their da'wah should revolve around establishing, Ikhwan, that Allah Azza wa Jal is their Lord, and establishing in their minds that Allah is the one that has given them what they possess. And that is not, Ikhwan, a difficult task for the one who has an aql. The one who has an aql, no doubt, even if he says, well, I'm not sure if there is a God. I'm not sure. Ikhwan, then we return them back to the call, and we return them back to the da'wah of the prophets and the messengers initially, and likewise we return them back to the the da'wah, ikhwan, of the A'imma of Ahl Sunnah. That the A'imma of Ahl Sunnah, ikhwan, many of them, when they were questioned concerning how does one know that Allah exists, we have those various statements that have come from our A'imma. Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions that if you were to look, or there is a tree, and if you were to look at that tree and the leaves on that tree, one animal eats from it, sheep or a cow, and it produces dung. Yet a second animal eats from it, a worm, and it produces silk. A third animal eats from it, the gazelle, and it produces musk. Yet that leaf is one and the same. Similarly, the statement of Imam Ahmad, who said that there is a fortress, a shiny fortress, or a smooth fortress, that has no door in it, that by way of which a person may enter, and there is no makhraj, nowhere for anyone to exit. And then while that fortress is in that state, there comes from it an animal that sings with the most beautiful voice. And he's referring to an egg. An argument, ikhwan, that you'll find our scholars mentioning, and even the Bedouin Arab, when he was asked, how do you know your Lord exists? He mentioned, al-ba'ratu tadullu ala al-ba'ir. Camel dung indicates the presence of a camel. Wa atharu sayri tadullu ala al-masir. Tracks in the ground indicate that a riding party has passed through. Is there not this sky that is filled with stars, and this earth that is filled with paths that are traversed, and this sea that is filled, or that has enormous waves? Does all of this not indicate the presence of Al-Latif Al-Khabir? Does all of this not indicate the presence of Allah Azza wa Jal? And so, ikhwan, when one establishes that Allah Azza wa Jal exists, and one establishes that one, or that all of us, ikhwan, that we have a creator, then it follows that if we have a creator, then we are created beings, and that creator, ikhwan, would not have created this magnificent creation for no reason. Anyone that creates, then he creates, ikhwan, for a purpose. And either we're going to say that the whole of this creation exists for no purpose, that Allah made all of this for no reason whatsoever, this magnificence. And even the one, ikhwan, that makes an abstract painting from among the human beings, then he still has a purpose. You look at the painting, it splashes, and it's fingerprints, and it's mud. It looks like mud. But the art connoisseur will explain to you what that painting is about, and how it speaks loudly, and how it indicates the feeling that that artist was going through, and so on. Even the abstract painting, it has a purpose, ultimately. But then we're going to attribute all of this magnificent creation and this magnificence that exists around us, ikhwan, to that which is just random and that which has no purpose. Thus, if we establish that we are created beings, then we must establish, ikhwan, that that creator wanted something from us, and no doubt that leads us to the da'wah and to the call of the prophets and the messengers. And know that those who rejected worshipping Allah alone, this affair is not a new phenomenon, ikhwan, and we see it here in the da'wah of the prophets and the messengers. And so Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentioned, are you amazed then that Allah should send to you a reminder, or a reminder should come to you from your Lord, from a man from among you, in order to warn you and to remind you. And remember that Allah Azza wa Jal has made you khulafa, vicegerents in the earth after the people of Nuh. This statement of Hud, that Allah Azza wa Jal has made you vicegerent on earth after the people of Nuh, has in it an indication of the fact that Hud was the first prophet after Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. That Hud was the first prophet after Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. And that, as we mentioned, ikhwan, the idol worship that took place at the time of Hud was the first manifestation of idol worship after Nuh alayhi afdalus salatu wassalam. Now, and then he mentioned قالوا أجئتنا لنعبد الله وحده ونذر ما كان يعبد آباءنا. He mentioned that they said in response, have you come to us that we should worship Allah alone and leave alone that which our forefathers used to worship? And that again, another one of the responses that every single one of the prophets received from their people. قالوا أجئتنا لنعبد الله وحده. Have you come to us that we should worship Allah alone? And the Messenger ﷺ, up until the time of the Messenger, they received the same thing. Have you come to us that we should worship Allah Azza wa Jal alone? Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, إنهم إذا قيل لهم لا إله إلا الله يستكبرون ويقولون أئنا لتاركوا آلهتنا لشاعر مجنون بل جاء بالحق وصدق المرسلين. Allah mentions that verily they, yani that is the people of Quraysh and those who were present from among those who rejected the Messenger ﷺ, that they, when it was said to them, say la ilaha illallah, yastakbirun. When it was said to them, say la ilaha illallah, they were filled with pride. وَيَقُولُونَ أَإِنَّا لَتَارِكُ آلِهَتِنَا لِشَاعِرٍ مَجْنُونَ. And they said, are we going to leave our idols because it is mad poet? Rather, he has come with the truth, Allah mentions, and attests to that which was brought by the Mursaleen, that which was brought by the messengers, the previous messengers. And that no doubt indicates the fact that the mushrikun at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they understood the meaning of La ilaha illallah better, ikhwan, than many of those who affiliate themselves to Islam, from among those who permit and allow the tawaf around graves and making dua to peers and making dua to holy men and dua, ikhwan, to saints, and supplicating and beseeching individuals besides Allah Azza wa Jal. Because they say and they believe that La ilaha illallah means La khaliqa illallah, means that there is no creator other than Allah. And so as long as you affirm that there is no creator other than Allah, then that doesn't negate the permissibility of making dua to someone other than Allah, they claim. Because the one who believes in La ilaha illallah, he attests to the fact that there is no creator other than Allah. As long as you accept that, then you're a Muslim, they claim. Because the meaning of La ilaha illallah is that there is no creator other than Allah. Thus, they permit making dua to graves, making dua or making tawaf around a grave, slaughtering for the inhabitant of a grave. Why? Because La ilaha illallah means that there is no creator other than Allah. If you attest to that, then you're a Muslim. And so, ikhwan, we find shirk manifesting upon many of them from the tawa'if of the Sufiya and the likes. And that, ikhwan, no doubt indicates that the mushrikun of Quraysh were better acquainted with the meaning of La ilaha illallah than many of those who affiliate themselves and attribute themselves to Islam. Because the mushrikun of Quraysh understood that La ilaha illallah meant abandoning, worshipping anything but Allah. إنهم إذا قيل لهم لا إله إلا الله يستكبرون ويقولون أئنا لتاركوا آلهتنا لشاعر مجنون. That verily, when it was said to them, say La ilaha illallah, they were filled with pride. And they would say, are we going to leave alihatina? Are we going to leave our idols? Indicating that they understood that saying La ilaha illallah means the abandonment of worshipping anything besides Allah. So they knew the true meaning of La ilaha illallah, which is La ma'buda bihaqqin illallah. Not that Allah is the only creator. Because the mushrikun of Quraysh understood that Allah was the only creator. They believed that. And that didn't make them Muslims. And so they understood that saying La ilaha illallah meant that there is no La ma'buda bihaqqin illallah. There is no deity with the right to be worshipped. And this affair, ikhwan, is of the essence because it is what every single prophet and messenger called to throughout time. And so Hud, when they made that da'wah, when he called to Allah Azza wa Jal, called his people to Allah, they understood that when he said that you should say La ilaha illallah, that they understood that that meant abandoning the idols and abandoning those things that they connected themselves to. And we should understand these concepts, ikhwan. That the people who worship those idols did not reject Allah Azza wa Jal. And next week, or in the next session, we'll see, ikhwan, prior to the punishment of the people of Hud, that they sent an individual. And we don't want to make mention of the story, but an individual was sent, ikhwan, with the purpose of beseeching Allah Azza wa Jal. And so they believed in Allah. They didn't reject Allah. But they believed that it was permissible for them to worship those idols besides Allah. So they had a ta'alluq and a connection, even though they believed in Allah. Their hearts were connected to others besides Allah that they would turn to and that they would beseech. Just as in our time, the Muslimun, their hearts are connected to affairs that are other than them being connected to Allah. They're connected to the Taweez, connected, ikhwan, to a sheikh, connected to the inhabitant of a grave, connected to some wali or some individual from among the peer or the saint or what have you. But they will say that, yeah, we're Muslim and we believe in Allah. Of course, we say La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. We say that. But the issue, ikhwan, is that their hearts are connected in relation to those affairs, that their hearts should be connected only to Allah Azza wa Jal. Their hearts are connected to issues and to affairs that they believe have the ability to help them and aid them besides Allah Azza wa Jal. And that, ikhwan, is of the essence. And thus the Muslim connects the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, connects mankind back to Allah Azza wa Jal alone, and disconnects that which they connect their hearts to from those things, ikhwan, that they believe may aid them besides Allah Azza wa Jal, or from those things that they give rights to. Those rights, or the likes of which, should only be given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they mentioned, قالوا أجئتنا لنعبد الله وحده ونذر ما كان يعبد آباؤنا فأتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من الصادقين. That they said, have you come to us so that we should worship Allah alone and leave alone what our forefathers used to worship? Another concept, ikhwan, that we see present, and anyone, ikhwan, who gives da'wah, in the call to Salafiyya and the call to the Sunnah, as-Sahiha, you will find this same statement coming from individuals, ikhwan, again, who are Muslimun. You turning us away from that which we have generations of being Deobandi. We've been Barelwi for generations. Or we have been upon the madhab of Abu Hanifa for generations, You're going to come now with this new thing? Don't you believe that Abu Hanifa knew this hadith that you're mentioning now? You believe that you understand that hadith better than Imam Malik, You understand that better than Imam al-Shafi'i? And so on and so forth. And so, ikhwan, the attitude. And again, ikhwan, we're not going to say that all of the Muslims are mushrikun, la. But those attitudes, we find them, ikhwan, prevalent. قالوا أجئتنا لنعبد الله ونذر ما كان يعبد آباؤنا فأتنا بما تعظنا إن كنت من الصادقين. Have you come to us that we should worship Allah alone and leave alone what our forefathers were upon? Leave alone that way? So everybody back home, everybody in the whole of Africa is wrong, and you're right, Akhi. Everybody in India, everybody in Pakistan is wrong, and you're right. You here in England, how long you been practicing? Yeah, all of them are wrong, and you're right, Akhi. Generations of great scholars, all wrong, and you're right. أجئتنا لنعبد الله ونذر ما كان يعبد آباؤنا فأتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من الصادقين. Bring us what you promise us if you're truthful, if what you're saying is truthful. Bring us what you've been promising us. Hud, alayhi salatu wasalam, as the rest of the prophets and the messengers, they used to make mention of Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned. I fear for you such and such. Allah has told me this. I conveyed to you such and such. Inni lakum nasihun ameen. Wa ana lakum nasihun ameen. I'm just giving you advice, ya akhi. I'm just to you a trustworthy advisor. That is, there is no kadhib in what I'm saying to you. It is not a lie. It is from Allah Azza wa Jal, Rabbil Alameen. And really, I fear for you. And I'm concerned about your safety. And I'm concerned about your welfare. And that is why, and that is taken no doubt from his statement, Inni akhafu alaykum. As was the statement of Nuh, as was the statement of others from among the prophets and messengers. Indicating, ikhwan, again, and when we study the way of the prophets and the messengers, we see this affair developing and this picture, ikhwan, of their da'wah developing. That they were individuals who gave nasiha, gave advice. That they were ameen, that is, that they were trustworthy. None of it was made up. None of it was created, fabricated, kadhib. None of it was something that was just pie in the sky that they would give to them just so that they would do good. La. I am ameen, I'm trustworthy. What I'm telling you is from Allah, I am his messenger, and there's nothing that I have mentioned is made up. Again, ikhwan, just so that the da'i can understand how those prophets and messengers were in their da'wah. Inni akhafu alaykum. Verily, I fear for you the punishment of a great day. And their attitude, therefore, ikhwan, was that they feared for them. They were concerned about them. Because of the fact that they understood the realities of Yawm al-Qiyamah and what will take place. And they would hate to see that Yawm al-Qiyamah comes along, or Yawm al-Qiyamah is established, and those individuals are marshaled off. As will occur, ikhwan, those individuals will be dragged upon their face, the kuffar, dragged upon their face, ikhwan, to the fire. Or that they will be from the ashab al-mash'ama, the companions of the left. Those who they saw and they're speaking with, they would hate to imagine that they will go, this individual here is going to be from it, just as they hate it for themselves. That this individual here, I would hate to see him Yawm al-Qiyamah among them. And so that, brothers and sisters, indicates the importance of us studying the Aqeedah al-Islamiyah, al-Sahihah. The importance of Tawheed with its subsections and with its categories. The importance of learning the affairs of Aqeedah, from them the belief in Yawm al-Qiyamah. And that which will take place on that day. The realities of the hellfire, the realities of Jannah. Because, ikhwan, it was what the prophets and the messengers knew about what would take place on that day that increased them in that desire, ikhwan, to free people from that. If a person is ignorant about it, then he may not see the need, or may not be as concerned about the mission of saving individuals from that, helping people to avoid that. Just as, ikhwan, if you were to pass a house and you saw in the front room of that house that the front room was ablaze, and it was 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and what was apparent was that the rest of the house was asleep, and you're going about your business, but you've noticed that blaze in that front room. You don't know who they are. You have no idea who that family is. Any individual that has half a heart would stop in his tracks and knock on the door, wake them up, and would bang the door down, and would shout, or would wake people up next door in order to help, stop passers-by in order to help. And if it means breaking in some way, kicking the door down to help them, then that is what you would do, though you don't know them. You don't know them, but you would hate to know that you've passed by that house and that 3 children died. A mother and a father passed away. A grandparent died. Even though you don't know who they are. But they passed away, and you had the ability to help them. You walked past and you walked by that house, and you weren't really concerned with removing those individuals from the house and saving that household, though you don't know them. Why? Because you understand when you actually see the fire, when you see it ablaze, you understand, ikhwan, it's evil. You understand the harm that may come from it, that could come from it. You understand that it takes life. You understand what it does. So when you see that, not only, ikhwan, do you save yourself, but you try your utmost to save those, ikhwan, who may possibly be harmed or lose their life on the basis of it. And if you're in a position of safety and have an ability to help, then that is what any individual with half a heart would do. The prophets and the messengers, ikhwan, on the basis of their ilm and their knowledge concerning that which would take place Yawm al-Qiyamah, their knowledge of what Allah Azza wa Jal had revealed to them, their knowledge of the wahi and the mission that Allah Azza wa Jal gave them, ikhwan, they left alone, or they used every effort, or they employed every effort, ikhwan, in giving da'wah to Allah Azza wa Jal, knowing, ikhwan, that these individuals, by way of their da'wah, may be saved from the torment and the punishment of that day. And so you found the prophets and the messengers making that statement, Inni akhafu alaykum adhaba yawmin azim. Verily, I fear for you the punishment of a great day. And that, ikhwan, is, as we go along, ikhwan, we'll see, was the call of all of the prophets and the messengers, including Prophet Hud. And we'll finish these last few verses. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, قَالَ قَدْ وَقَعَ عَلَيْكُم مِّن رَبِّكُمْ رِجْسٌ وَغَضَبٌ أَتُجَادِلُونَنِي فِي أَسْمَاءٍ سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ مَا نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِن سُلْطَانٍ فَانْتَظِرُوا إِنِّي مَعَكُم مِّنَ الْمُنْتَظِرِينَ. That upon his continual warning of them, just as occurred with Noah, him continually warning them and them continually rejecting after understanding, that Allah Azza wa Jal informs us of the statement of Hud, that he mentioned, قَدْ وَقَعَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ رِجْسٌ وَغَضَبٌ. There has now fallen upon you from your Lord filth, or this affair of rijs, which is the rijs and ghadab, is that they were considered filthy in terms of their belief, and the anger of Allah Azza wa Jal had fallen upon them. Then he mentioned, أَتُجَادِلُونَنِي فِي أَسْمَاءٍ سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ. Are you going to argue with me about names that you have created, you and your fathers? The names of these idols that you're worshipping, you're going to argue with me about that? Something that you know that your people have created. Samad, Samud, Haba, names that you created and put to those idols. Or individuals that were righteous and you began to worship them. You're going to argue with me about that? The two of us, we know that those idols that you worship were created. Why argue then? Similarly, ikhwan, those individuals who are worshipped besides Allah in our time, holy men, awliya, individuals who in reality none of us knows whether he is truly from the awliya of Allah Azza wa Jal, that Allah truly loves him. For all we know, that individual that they're raising could be a munafiq. Whereas has the wahi revealed from the sky, affirming that this man is a wali? And then even if that were the case, what is the authority that allows you to turn to him in worship when Allah Azza wa Jal has commanded you to worship him alone? أَتُجَادِلُونَنِي فِي أَسْمَاءٍ. Are you going to argue with me concerning names? سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ مَا نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ فَانْتَظِرُوا إِنِّي مَعَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُنْتَظِرِينَ. You're going to argue with me about names that you created, you and your forefathers? Allah Azza wa Jal has given you no authority for that. So wait, for indeed I am with you among those who are waiting. I have promised you what I've promised you, and I'm continually giving you this da'wah, and you understand the message that I'm conveying to you. You understand it. And so now Allah has informed me that rijz and ghadab is upon you. His anger is upon you. فَانْتَذِرُوا إِنِّي مَعَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُنْتَظِرِينَ. I've done my best. So wait, because I am now among those who wait. And so, ikhwan, the da'wah of Hud, like and similar to the da'wah of Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam. So Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ بِرَحْمَةٍ مِنَّا وَقَطَعْنَا دَابِرَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَمَا كَانُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, and so we saved him. We saved Hud. وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ, and those who were with him, بِرَحْمَةٍ مِنَّا, on the basis of mercy from us. وَقَطَعْنَا دَابِرَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا, and we cut off the plotting of those who belied and who disbelieved in our signs. وَمَا كَانُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ, and indeed they were not mu'mineen, they were not believers. As far as that which Allah Azza wa Jal saved Hud from, and those who believed alongside him, which indicates, ikhwan, the benefits of belief and iman, that bi'idhnillah we'll discuss in the next session concerning Prophet Hud. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad, wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.